Hello everybody. I'm going to give just a second for everybody to log on and for the live feed to be official. So give me just a minute. The topic of discussion today is typed into the title. So let me get set up and then we will begin. Feel free to leave any questions down below, and I will be sure to get to you as I'm able. Oh, we have 2 viewers. Hello. 4 viewers. How are y'all today? We're going to discuss climate change. Hello, Emerson. Hello, Madeline. I'm getting set up here. Thank you for bearing with me for just one moment. Anybody have any good news for today? I've been watching the DAPL protests, and some of the employees there circling the camp and firing guns and doing ridiculous stuff. These people are just praying and protecting their water supplies. I don't understand all this mess. Hey Paul, how are you? I'm well, thank you. I went to a housewarming party last night, so I am a little tired at the moment, but we had a great time. It was good to get Bree and Mario settled in, so I'm really happy for those guys. Alright, give me just another minute, and I have so much to cover today. I'll review that in just a second with you guys. Do y'all have any questions about the subject matter before I get started? Hi, Leaf and Janelle. Oh, yes, the DAPL protests are insane. I mean, you'd think after we took the whole continent and the fact that gas is $2 a gallon, we could go ahead and switch to renewable energy, but our leaders tend to think in terms of money and not so much in ethics, it seems. So, this is a product of what happens when we don't hold them accountable. This video will attempt to provide a perspective that's neither progressive nor conservative, not neoliberal, neo-fascist. I'm going to try to avoid getting caught in that trap because this message is intended for anyone who's willing to listen. This message is not for just Fox viewers. This message is not just for CNN viewers. This message is for anybody who cares about our environment and our collective future, which I would hope would be everyone, but is sadly not the case at the moment. So, or maybe they do care, they just don't know what to care about. Hopefully this video will help enlighten you. Okay, so yeah, if you want to share this video, you're welcome to do so. Oh yeah, Paul, there's tons of patents that are locked up that could greatly help humanity in a lot of ways. I won't go specifically into those today, but yeah, so the technology and the truth is out there. You just have to have an open mind and a willingness to investigate. Alright, so the reason we're gathered here today, there's some things I want to discuss. There's a lot of disagreement on climate change. Using certain terms like that, people just shut down and don't want to contribute or listen to a conversation. Do you think the EC will not vote in the Electoral College? I don't care that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote because Bernie Sanders won the primary, but that was overlooked. So, you know, I'm not willing to redo the general election unless we're also willing to redo the primary. But today's discussion is not about politics mostly, though it is, somewhat related. So I'm not going to go into the politics thing because I'm still angry about it. The whole reason I'm talking about energy and climate change today is because I don't want to talk about Trump and Clinton right now. Everybody else is doing that. I'm going to cover something that we need to address. And since, we just voted in a president who does not think that climate change is real, We need to come to a collective understanding, and we need to realize that, climate change is a thing. It has an effect. It affects all of us. We need to look at the root causes and address them. Oh, it's fine, Leaf and Janelle. I'm not mad or anything. I just want to explain myself. Okay, so as you see in the title of this video today, I have 6 basic topics that I'm going to overview. I feel like I want to give the whole perspective of the system. That way, the energy system. That way, you can understand what human effects are on our environment. Some solutions. Basically, as I've said, it's a discussion of the effects of humans on the Earth and its biosphere. Um, Many scientists, renowned thinkers, have called it the Anthropogenic period, which has also correlated with, the 5th greatest extinction event on this Earth. And, where do we go from here? So I will remind you, you're welcome to share, post comments. I'll get to them as I'm able. Otherwise, I'll just follow my outline and we'll go over this whole discussion. All right, so we're going to start with dehabitation, mass extinction. Humans have killed, like 50% of the species that had existed before we started infiltrating the entire planet. That's, biodiversity. In any system, diversity is important. The more Paul, I will remind you, we're not going to the herd mentality. We're looking at this as independent human beings. I don't care if you're conservative. I don't care if you're liberal. We're humans. We're going to use our critical thinking skills. We're going to go over these things, and hopefully we'll learn something today. Maybe I'll learn something from you guys. I don't know. Okay. So in relation to dehabitation and mass extinction, first of all, our rainforest ecosystems are in a state of decay and recession, and that's due to human overconsumption, and also the fact that we don't really have democratic control over our resources. Most of the resource reserves are in the hands of states, not private corporations. So that's something we have to recognize. But in my opinion, our agricultural systems are incredibly inefficient. Instead of being localized, we'll have monocultures and produce things from halfway across the world and ship it all over to be processed and then a different place to be sold. Those are inefficiencies we have to recognize, especially since our system is still so reliant upon fossil fuels. Every time we're transporting things, that's burning more carbon. So, we're cutting down, 2,000 square kilometers of Amazon rainforest, a day, I think? It's pretty insane. It's tough stuff. Yeah, but it's for things like palm oil and stuff like that. And then, we're taking away all this biomass that was sequestering carbon. Through photosynthesis, it takes our carbon dioxide, it locks it into itself basically, and it exhales oxygen for us to breathe. And that's going to decrease as we cut down more rainforest. I totally agree. Buy locally. I'm for hyper localization on a lot of issues, and you'll see that as I continue this discussion today. Okay, so next, also the oceanic systems are also in a state of decay, just like the rainforest. First of all, you have carbon acidification. The reason the oceans are acidifying, from what I can gather, is because you have an excess of carbon dioxide and other pollutants that we've released. And I don't know, I would hope that everyone here has had physical science, but diffusion, is where a fluid flows from high concentration to low concentration. And, if there's a lot of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, eventually that's going to diffuse into our oceans. And I kind of think of it like, I work at a restaurant, we serve soda. And you have the soda concentrate, and then you have the soda water, the CO2, and that's basically putting, carbon dioxide mixed with the concentrate, and that makes your soda. And that's kind of what we're doing to our oceans right now, unfortunately. And as it, that's going to contribute to the acidity, and creatures like coral reefs and things like that were not evolved to survive in the type of environment that we've created through our excessive pollution. So we are causing that. It's not just about the heat, it's also about what I just stated to you. This is destroying, food chain bases like phytoplankton. They're microscopic sea creatures. They may seem inconsequential to us, but they're the basis for entire food systems. So if you're killing off the base of a food system, eventually every creature above that feeds on them is going to die too. And that includes us that feed on the creatures that feed on the plankton. So, that's why, for example, fish farming is a sustainable method that is very important because, that can be more easily regulated than just wild farming. We have to take these things into consideration because everything we do has an effect on our environment. Just as a side note, I would also suspect that excessive radiation from the Fukushima disaster has had a negative effect on Pacific oceanic ecology. There's only so much radiation a creature can withstand before there are negative consequences. These whales and dolphins and fish and things are not taking iodine pills, so they don't have any kind of intellectual or natural protection from the radiation pollution that has been released for the past 4 or 5 years. Chernobyl was never cleaned up. But I'm going to move on because I don't want to get too conspiratorial today. I do want to note something interesting about the cannabis plant. Well, for one way the DEA is able to identify wild growers hiding their plants, in national forests and stuff, is because cannabis as a plant, it naturally absorbs radiation in the surrounding area. And so when you look at it under an infrared scanner, which is what they do, that's how you're able to identify what's cannabis and what's not compared to the surrounding biomass. Some similar plants that also do this are like the tomatoes or cedar trees. They have similar properties like this. So you can actually you can plant hemp in the area of Chernobyl or Fukushima. It'll over time naturally absorb that, and then you just dispose of the irradiated hemp that has sequestered, the free radicals and things that are just floating around. So, in addition to oceanic systems decaying, we also have a lack of ecological corridors. What I mean by that is, with the urban sprawl, we're cutting off connections between habitats. And so, these wild animals, they don't have connections between the different areas where they inhabit, and this decrease in habitat is also causing them to die off because they don't have access to the resources that they need to survive as a species. So, and in addition, the final point on this topic is suburban sprawl and lack of efficient city planning. Oh, no, if you smoke marijuana, you don't get radiation necessarily. If you planted hemp around Fukushima, cultivated that, and then smoked that, yes, that would be the case. But in general, you're getting the basic, average environmental radiation that we all encounter every day. So, but as I said, everything we do has an effect. So it's important to recognize that. So next is ecological devastation. So first we have decreased carbon sequestration, and that's related to rainforest destruction. So basically, as we cut down more trees, that's less biomass that's filtering the not only our natural carbon output, just through respiration, but also the carbon output of our archaic fossil fuel system. So you have increased output of carbon dioxide due to increasing demands by a growing human population on an archaic fossil fuel energy system. They've known that this was going on for a while. This should have long been addressed. Another side point is alteration of ecological systems in relation to water diversion. So basically, hydroelectric dams and things like that, they have an effect downstream, just like every other action that we do. And so we have to also recognize that, and that we have an effect there. I remind you that fossil fuels are indeed limited resources. So that means once we've used them all, we basically better have a backup plan, because that's what we would need in order to maintain societal stability. Another point, fracking has been related to increased seismic activity and also poisoning of local water tables. As we all know, I hate talking politics at the moment, but Hillary Clinton pushed this covertly abroad, and we didn't even realize it until it started to come here. They were trying to, they started doing it in Scott County here, but Tennessee's a terrible place to do something like fracking, especially. We have a type of land here, I think it's called Kirst, K-I-R-S-T, K-U-R-S-T, something like that. Basically what it means is underground, it's all caverns here. So, that's just going to increase the chances that we have seismic activity when you're pressure blasting these chemical treatments deep underground. So that is something else we need to recognize. Okay, so continuing my second point of ecological devastation, we're also seeing a homogenization of our food supply. With industrial agriculture, even genetic modifications, we're seeing a reduction in the number of varieties and species of different plants that we consume. That's concerning because, as I said, a healthy system is going to be diverse. It's not going to be homogenized. That's it. I compare it to society. I don't agree with the Nazi view of society because, you're going to have a bottlenecking of the diversity of human species if you're just going to focus on uplifting one tiny little bloodline. It's just inefficient. You need different strokes. You need all kinds. We're rainbow tribe if you want to look at it like that. So, and then the last part of what I was discussing is pollinator endangerment. And I relate this to neonicotinoids. Humans are addicted to nicotine, for example. It's a muscle paralyzer. I think that's the right way to put that. So basically, I could imagine these bees kind of see this as addictive. It's a pesticide. Hi, Kate. It's good to see you again. I'm glad you enjoyed my videos. So yeah, we've long seen a reduction in the supply of bees, and at least 30% of our agriculture productivity comes from them. We need our pollinators, and we need to protect our pollinators. That's incredibly important. That's part of what it means to be a steward of the earth. So I'm going to move on to my third point, which is dependence on archaic technologies. I'll try to go back through this video and post related links to what I'm discussing. But for now, I'm just going to continue the discussion. So, we have coal technology. As I said the other day, over 50% of our domestic energy production is from coal. And I'm not a huge fan of nuclear power. To me, it just seems like it props up the weapons industry. Some more maybe progressive-minded people might agree or follow me along those lines. Um, yes, 0 point energy, but I don't know anybody who has access to that right now, so I'm gonna deal in what I know to be reality. Um, I've seen some bees, but that's only because I planted 3 butterfly bushes in my yard, and since I did that, I've seen just with those 3 bushes a big increase in the different arthropods that show up in my neighborhood. It's one of the few uplifting things I've experienced this year amidst all this mess. Um, See, I really don't like nuclear energy because basically it's glorified hydroelectric power. It's pretty stupid. Like, they just use it to heat up water and turn a turbine. I mean, there's nothing fantastic. It's not fusion. I mean, they try to glorify it, but there's no place to put the spent nuclear fuel. You can't blast it off into outer space because if it explodes on the way, then it's in the stratosphere. So, that's not a viable option. We have a petroleum-based dollar, we have a petroleum-based economy. Pretty much everything is an oil product, it seems these days. You can make a lot of these plastic products out of things like hemp, but that would hurt some people's business models, and they're unwilling or too lazy to change. So yes, I'm reading, Kate. Excellent. Yeah, I love local honey, especially for allergies. I'd rather just put honey in my coffee or hot tea than take Zyrtec or whatever. I just try to avoid pharmaceuticals, whether they're OTC or not. Yeah, and Lila, I'll cover in just a second. I'll cover some alternatives to the fossil fuel and non-renewable energy structure. So also fracking, as we've discussed, it poisons water tables, and there's been an increase in seismic activity seen in Oklahoma, for example, since they started fracking a lot more in the past few years. I think there was just an earthquake a few weeks ago. Yeah, didn't we just reach like 400 parts per million with atmospheric CO2 levels recently? I'm trying to wake people up, but this is a slow, tedious process. Here I am. All right. And then one last thing, I did want to just remind us, in terms of how humans came together to solve a global problem. Decades ago, you had CFCs or chlorofluorocarbons, and they were in hairsprays and all kinds of aerosols. And every time we used those, they would float up and I guess do some kind of chemical process with the ozone layer, which ozone is 3 oxygens bound together. And when you deplete the ozone layer, that increases ultraviolet rays um, upon us, and increases the prevalence of things like melanoma, for example. So, as Dr. Jill Stein said, for example, pollution does have monetary effects, particularly in relation to, healthcare cost and things like that. So not only should we be discussing lowering healthcare costs on the administrative side, this is part of preventative healthcare. Having a clean and healthy planet, clean water, clean air, clean food, free of pesticides and things like that. Those things are important to me and important to a lot of my friends and family. I know it is. So, no, I would imagine honey's not needed for our health. I would also imagine there'd be a lot less allergies if people continued to go outside and play and naturally, come into contact with these things versus the natural environment seeming like a foreign invader to our body. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and move on to point 4, and that is the effects of excessive carbon dioxide, methane, greenhouse gases in general. One thing you should know is that carbon dioxide lasts 4 times as long as methane. So it lasts a while. It's something that's not going to go away overnight, even if we all switch to solar power and lithium-ion battery cars today. It's going to take some time. Another part is overconsumption. That has some spiritual undertones as well. But back to the topic. On the other hand, in comparison to carbon dioxide, methane has 10 times the heat trapping ability of carbon dioxide. So it only lasts for a fourth of the time span that carbon dioxide does, as I stated before, but its effects are 10 times the intensity. And this is important because what releases methane? Decaying organic matter, whether that be cow poop, whether that be, roadkill, whether that be the collective human farts every day. I mean, decaying organic matter causes methane. So it's just a matter of fact. And relating this, I want to discuss the idea of feedback loops in relation to climate change. So you have in Siberia, for example, there's a key word called permafrost. This is frozen land, ancient animals and plants that have long been frozen. And then as the earth heats, which is heated, a degree or two Celsius over the past few decades, it's going to be melting this organic matter. The danger is, this is called permafrost because it never melted before. And once it does and it starts to decay, as I said, decaying organic material creates methane. And methane is 10 times the greenhouse gas in terms of intensity as carbon dioxide. So if we allow Siberia, for example, to start melting, and it reaches a point where we can't stop it, it's just going to get 1,000 times worse after that point. That's why I'm trying to discuss this with you now, so that hopefully we can avoid further feedback loops and points of no return, because we have reached a few already. There are a lot of dead species because of us. Just saying. Okay. And then, relating to excessive heat from the sun, you also have unexpected consequences relating to oceanic currents and the changing salinity. As I said, we have more carbon dioxide being diffused into the oceans, and then you also have the polar ice caps melting, and so you're getting a more acidic ocean, and then that has, salts associated with it, but then you have, pardon me if I misstate anything, but then you have, an increase in fresh water from the frozen glaciers entering the oceans, and that's going to change the way the whole system interacts with itself. Every little part, affects every other. It's interrelated. This is like systems theory. Instead of talking about corporations, I'm talking about ecology in relation to systems theory and energy production. So there's that. You also have opposition to transitioning away from fossil fuels. You have, the fossil fuel industry. Koch brothers receive heavy subsidies, and then they, in turn, the money that they profit from this type of system, they use to go back and lobby our government to get even more preferential treatment, making it harder for small business competitors to, compete with them. And that's a problem with me. That's crony capitalism. You also have a banking industry. Look at NoDapple at the Dakota Access Pipeline, for example. You have all the major banks and the major players or investors there. They have no intention of stopping because they're making money off the whole affair. And then you also have the military-industrial complex, which is one of the largest consumers of fossil fuels in the world. And we're all about empire right now, and as we go across the globe, we're just burning and burning and burning and burning more fossil fuels. That's something else that we need to address yesterday. So, relating to the ocean acidification, as I discussed, diffusion is a fluid that moves from high to low concentration. The excessive acidification is leading to coral bleaching, destruction of food chain bases, and then we're also seeing algae blooms. Algae blooms are dangerous because as they bloom, they're pulling the oxygen out of the water and causing what wildlife has managed to survive thus far to suffocate. So each little thing that we do has increasingly compounded the problem. And so I'm discussing it with you today so that maybe we can identify some key things or key areas where we can work together. And I'm even speaking to outgoing President Obama. I'm speaking to Bernie Sanders, to Jill Stein, to all the progressives. I'm even speaking to Donald Trump because you represent all of us now. And you are our leader. And you have to listen to us because you got voted in based on that. If you're going to be a populist candidate, you need to listen to us. All right, so moving on to the fifth topic, I wanted to discuss alternative technologies and some solutions. It doesn't just help to criticize, it also helps to be proactive and to, provide a way forward, some hope, some positivity. There are ways we can work together now that we're recognizing the problem. Maybe we can agree to reach a compromise, something, anything. We can even sign the Kyoto Protocol. Come on, America. We're one of the largest consumers of fossil fuels in the world. We have to get this right. Everybody is following our lead. Everyone. Over in Asia, where they produce all our cheap goods, it's a smog fest over there. Fracking all over the place. We have to get it together. Kind of like, what was it? Sister Act 2? I think it was, If I wanna be somebody, if I wanna go somewhere, I gotta wake up and pay attention. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Ingrid. Oh, I'm wearing this because it's the Chinese Year of the Monkey, and I really like monkeys, so that's why I'm wearing this. Oh, I'm open to. I like Stephen Greer. He does the Disclosure Project, right? I've been following him a little while. Hillary Clinton could have long disclosed extraterrestrials, a long time ago. But I'd rather deal with this, with climate change and with energy production, because talking extraterrestrial solves nothing at this point, unless they have some kind of nuclear fusion they want to provide to us. I really don't care. Okay, so in terms of alternative technologies, let's start with energy production. You have solar energy, for example. Let me pull up a link that I had about this. Just a few facts. Solar energy is a completely free source of energy, and it's found in abundance. The sun is 90 million miles from the Earth. It takes less than 10 minutes for light to travel for that much of the distance. I'm reading from conserveenergyfuture.com. Another fact is solar energy, which comprises of radiant heat and light from the sun, can be harnessed with some modern technology like photovoltaic, solar heating, artificial photosynthesis, solar architecture, and solar thermal energy. Oh, there are tons of alternatives. I mean, look up some of the quote-unquote conspiracy theories of the things that Nikola Tesla invented. Those were suppressed in favor of technologies, that could be regulated and kept artificially scarce so that capitalists could exacerbate their system to make money off of us. There's energy radiant around us everywhere, in outer space, on Earth, cosmic winds, however you want to approach it. There's many ways to skin this cat, but first we have to reach some common understandings. So let's see. One more fact about solar. The solar technology can be distinguished into active and passive. You have some examples of active or photovoltaic panels. Solar thermal collectors, or passive technologies include constructing rooms to improve air circulation, or orienting space to favorably use sunlight. Even if you want to look at the natives, look at the Adobe Pueblos. They built shelters underground, and the Earth, in terms of geothermal, it maintains a constant temperature. So if you build your homes into the Earth, you can, or even a natural, they have natural refrigerators that require no electricity. It doesn't require electricity, so it stays cool in the summer, warm in the winter. It's a steady, 75 to 80 degrees, whatever it may be. So not only do we need to discuss alternative energies, we need to discuss ways to decrease our reliance on energy. Okay, so back to my topic. So that was solar. Let's discuss some of wind power as well, just so we can clarify some things. Back to conserveenergyfuture.com. Here's one fact. Wind power consists of turning energy from the wind to other energy forms. There are different ways to harness it. For example, windmills produce mechanical energy, enable sails to move boats, and generate electricity. We've had windmills forever. Like, in the Industrial Revolution, they even used water turbines next to rivers to power their machines. They didn't convert it to electricity per se, but they had mechanical machines that they developed. Yes, Kate, I love Earthships. They are just expensive to build because we're over reliant on conventional building methods. And, with capitalism, if we increase demand for something, it's going to lower the price. So the more people that are doing Earthships, the lower cost the materials will become. And that includes insulating materials like hempcrete, which are mold resistant, heat resistant, and sequester carbon for the first 50 years after you set it in place. Well, small ones are not expensive to build. You can use mostly recyclable materials, but then when you want to discuss cisterns and building atriums and greenhouses and, setting up solar panels, those are the things that get expensive. If you want to live like a native or a shaman, that could be really cheap, I'm sure. I could go build a mud hut right now if I wanted to. Oh, wigwam, whatever. um, Stand with Standing Rock, just as a side note. They're out there right now fighting for our clean water while we sit here playing on Facebook. So, just to put that out there. Another fact about wind energy, windmills have been used since 2000 BC, were first developed in Persia and China. So, great job, guys. Ancient mariners sailed to distant lands by making use of winds. You can still sail a boat today, and that requires no electricity. Farmers use wind power to pump water and for grinding grains. Today, most of it's used to converting to electrical energy. I think that's enough for the wind energy part because this video is getting long. Yeah, you can insulate with old tires, you can insulate with mud, you can insulate with plastic bottles, you can insulate with hay. I mean, Oprah did a special where they built, schools in third world nations and insulated the walls with hay and put concrete over it. I mean, they're cheap alternatives. Not everything has to be corporate and slick looking, Lila, I'm opening to discussing Earthships more with you, yes. All right, so an additional alternative energy production would be geothermal. Iceland, for example, has, I believe, 30% of their domestic energy production is from geothermal electricity. Keep in mind they live close to a tectonic plate, and the heat is closer to the surface, so to speak. It's more shallow, the crust is there. But it's a viable alternative in many places if we were to consider it. So here's from sciencekids.co.nz. The technology behind geothermal electricity generation has improved substantially, but it still only provides a fraction of world electricity generation. Yeah, Kate, I've seen Thrive as well. That was a really good movie. The torus and toroidal flow, that's something that, physics is discovering, and even lay people are starting to realize is a thing and is worth investigating. But that's another topic. Um, Geothermal's clean, reliable, cost-effective, but as I said, it's limited to areas near tectonic plate boundaries. You know, this with renewable energy, it does take an all of the above approach. All of the above doesn't mean fracking. It doesn't mean more pipelines. It means what I'm discussing right now. Um, let's see. Oh, also the Philippines, they have geothermal power plants that contribute to about 30% of their electricity production. Here in the USA, it's less than 1%. Keep in mind, on the one hand, we are producing the most renewable energy in the world now, but we consume so much of the world's demand that it's just a drop in the bucket. That's something else we need to face. Um, and geothermal is not just about energy production necessarily. You can use it to heat your home. I remember watching, Meet the Duggars, and they were building their new big house, and they were putting, I think it was like geothermal floor heating. Like basically, it was water pipes that ran under the floor and above the ceiling that would heat their home. That's no electricity. That's just, you know, moving the heat from the earth up into your home and just circulating it around. I mean, okay, so, humans have enjoyed geothermal energy in the form of hot springs for a long time. The oldest known spa is a hot spring found in Lisan Mountain in China, built in the 3rd century BC. Um, Also in Iceland, hot water runs from geothermal power plants under pavements and helps to melt ice. So, there's a lot of approaches we can take. Uh, I haven't written a book yet. I didn't realize people would be this interested in what I had to say. Um, there's a lot more I have to say, but I have to keep it logical and organized. So, let us see. So, there are other forms of alternative energies. Let me see if I can pull up a few here. I discussed the other day the carbon sequestering biofuel that Europe was developing. Um, I mean, you also have hydroelectric energy, for example. We've pretty much, thank you, Kate. We've pretty much tapped where we can put dams. I'm not really that encouraged by that. Biomass is another one commonly used. But here's the thing, most people, when they think biomass, they're cutting down and burning trees. I don't see how that is earth friendly or green at all. If for every tree you cut down, you're planting another one or two more, maybe. Um, you want to know about me? Uh, yeah, sure. Born and raised in Tennessee. Consider myself independent. I'm spiritual but not religious. I was raised in the Methodist Church. Um, I love to learn. I'm a musician and play 4 instruments. I am involved with journalism and business and marketing and food service and management and training other people. My dad was an educator. He was a school board member for 10 years here in Tennessee. My mom's in the medical field. My dad now works as a manager at Nissan. Um, so I was born and raised in Tennessee. I've lived here all of my life. Um, I used to get discouraged and want to move away. Now I see this as my home base, and I want to help bring Tennessee into the 21st century. Um, Part of our problem here is lack of education. Another problem here is lack of opportunity and low pay. So there are a lot of things that I would like to work on, you know, with different people. Is there anything else you want to touch on about me before I continue with our discussion? Grace? Okay. Um, I did major in piano performance for a couple years at Tennessee Wesleyan College in East Tennessee. I did not graduate. My high school was McMinn County High School in Athens, Tennessee, also. Their mascot was the Cherokees. Um, as for me, I'm As far as I'm aware, I'm German, Scotch, Irish, Dutch, British, and Cherokee. I also went back to school this past year. I was studying nursing because I thought that's what I wanted to do. I'm not so sure now. I mean, I took both anatomies. I made Dean's List both semesters, so it's not the level of difficulty that deters me. It's just I have no idea what I want to do with my life. Okay, anyway, I didn't want to talk about this. I want to go back to the discussion. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out, Daniel. Okay, so in terms of biomass, there are other aspects we can discuss as well. Um, Methane generation. See, you're welcome, Grace. You can take, for example, with farms, you can take the excrement of your livestock and you can put them. Yeah, I'm just not being paid to do it, but that's okay. Hopefully one day I will be. Pay is not everything, but I would like to have a livelihood doing something that I enjoy that fulfills me. So, big oil has long suppressed alternatives. GM, I think, tried to do an electric vehicle in the 90s or earlier. It was suppressed. Maybe it was the 80s. Um, I was a kid then. Um, Back to biomass. Like I said, you can use the excrement of your farm livestock, and as it decays, you can burn the methane off of that. That generates electricity localized for your farm. Some people are even powering their whole neighborhoods surrounding the farm by doing this. Also, if you would like to share this video, I really appreciate it. I think this is stuff worth talking about. Hi, Elizabeth. It's good to have you join us. Thank you. And going back to biomass, we can also talk about the production of alcohol for automobile fuel and fueling electric power plants. So some people think ethanol. I don't like the subsidy of corn. The Native Americans taught us the Three Sisters method, planting maize with a bean with a gourd. And that is a synergistic relationship that will feed you. But we plant monocultures, and corn by itself just completely depletes the soil of all nutrition, and it increases our reliance on chemical fertilizers. And just having a monoculture with big ag increases our reliance on pesticides too, because pests are more likely to attack a monoculture than a diverse ecosystem. So, in terms of biomass relating to production of alcohol, you don't need corn ethanol. If you were to produce enough ethanol to power the whole United States, it would take twice the land mass of the contiguous United States to produce enough corn ethanol. It's not viable, it's inefficient, and the only reason it's propped up is because of government subsidy. So you can make biofuels out of things like algae, out of hemp, out of a multitude of things. I challenge you to do your research. I agree. Yes, I disagree with hydroelectric because it does affect the tributaries and downstream from where you do this, and it affects fish, their food supply, cleanliness of water. I agree with those things, Kate. So those are points of contention I would like to raise up with you and us discuss in the future. Okay, so we've discussed biomass as an alternative. There's also, hydrogen fuel cells, energy from tides. Maybe someday we can develop hydrogen fusion. So many possibilities. Let's get to it, I'm ready to work with you. So, we've discussed energy production. Now I'm going to move on to energy storage. As I said, with lithium ion, you can store whatever energy is produced. Oh God, I don't even want to touch Monsanto. Yes, they produced Agent Orange. Yes, they were recently bought out by Bayer, another monopoly that greatly concerns me. Monsanto, they're seeds will, fertilize neighborhood farms, and they'll go and say you stole our patent, and they'll send you to court and steal your farm. Um, let's see, what else does Monsanto do? Homogenizing the food supply, as I said. Everything they do is covert on top of all of this. And then, lastly, with these transgenically modified organisms, basically your government and corporate user agreement is you're the beta testers. The general population is the beta testers. They don't really test their products, they just kind of unleash it into the environment and hope for the best. It's pure insanity. But alas, I'm not the one in charge, I'm just the one criticizing, so. So we have lithium-ion batteries. Elon Musk has his gigafactory in Nevada. There's new developments in lithium-ion battery storage. They have new battery models that use 1/10 of the lithium and are 90% air. And they weigh less, so they require less energy to move around, and they hold more energy. So we're having breakthroughs every day. The fossil fuel industry is on its dying breaths. I totally support Europe having banned GMOs. Russia, everyone else. That's an American product that I completely disavow, and I think you all should too as well. Genetic modification is fine, but transgenic modification has not been tested thoroughly enough before being released into the food supply. And then on top of that, they've lobbied so that we can't know what's in our food. The Dark Act that Obama passed, not labeling GMOs or GMO products or with GMO ingredients. Those are big concerns for me. So back to energy storage. You also have the hydrogen fuel cells that I discussed the other day. You get water, you get a battery or some power source, and you have your two poles from the battery. On one side, placed in water, on one side it breaks down into oxygen, and on the other side it breaks down into hydrogen. And so you're only releasing, oxygen into the atmosphere, or I don't know exactly how it works, but when you burn a hydrogen fuel cell, when you burn hydrogen, all it does is undergo a chemical reaction, combine with oxygen, and become water. So we could be doing that with electric cars instead of fossil fuels, but again, that doesn't make the Koch brothers any money. Right, being anti-GMO is just being, critical, journalistic, just like being critical of ingredients of vaccines, for example. Nobody wants to hear anything about that, but, vaccines are good, preservatives are not necessarily. Oh, the whole GMO thing began at I believe, World's Fair in 1982. I think that was Reagan then, but they were pushing the future of the American economy was going to be intrinsically tied to these genetic food products that we started, developing. And since then, we've realized that it was a complete bust. So none of y'all want to buy it. I don't blame you. I don't want to buy the stuff either. So yes, with the electrolysis and hydrogen fuel cells, you can have a clean battery. Only byproduct is water. No carbon whatsoever. And then you also have the Tesla wall. Elon Musk has come out with the Tesla wall. Regardless of how your energy is produced, you can now store it at your house, and then say if there's a storm and the energy system goes down in your area for the day, you've got your backup power. Or I do as I'm able. I'm not able to afford 100% organic diet. Here in America, they subsidize cheap crap and not wholesome foods. So I eat what I can afford. I grow things in season when I'm able. I'm not the best gardener. I know a lot more about theory and academics than I do the practical aspect of it, but I appreciate it, and I work with gardening groups. All right, so next we're going to move to energy logistics. As I did point out, it's incredibly important to localize your energy supply. The further electricity has to travel, in order to reach its final destination, the weaker and less efficient it is. So you want to have solar panels on your house. You want to have a wind turbine in your backyard. You want to have, city and regional wide efforts. It's inefficient to build one giant solar panel, in the western United States desert, and then expect that to power the entire United States. We are at a point where we have to try several different options and approach it from a united front. Just like, a united progressive coalition that I've discussed before with you guys. Yes. Again, I am no enemy of genetic modification. I am a critic of it. So I'll just leave it at that. In terms of energy logistics, as I said, if it's localized, you increase the efficiency. Let's say even if I did favor nuclear, and nuclear I consider to be viable, they have models of neighborhood nuclear units that are tiny, can be safely locked down in case of meltdown, and will power an entire neighborhood for 5,000 years. So, that is something to consider, though I'm not a proponent of that. I did want to just be fair. That's what a true journalist would do, is give you more than one side of a story, more than one perspective. And also in terms of energy logistics, I don't think we should force people to be dependent on the grid. I don't think we should force them to be monitored if they don't want to be. If people want to disconnect and do their own thing, people still have internet. You can get in contact with them, but, the state doesn't necessarily have to control everything. We are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. So let's ask the people what they want, not the people with all the money, everybody. Period. So next, I just wanted to quickly discuss clean air, water, and food. In terms of clean water, there's only 3.5% of the Earth's water supply is fresh. There's a lot of water, but most of it's salty. We could have a desalination plant, like say off the coast of California, especially since you all are experiencing record droughts right now. That would decrease your reliance on aqueducts and diverting water from other parts of the country. And it would also allow you to be independent with your water supply. You could even become, without seceding from the United States, California, you could become an agricultural giant just by convincing a few billionaire investors to mutually go in on a desalination plant. So I highly encourage you to consider that, because it would help you and indirectly help all of us. So I do support law enforcement, yes. Anyway, in terms of clean, air, water, and food, we need to be planting trees. Most of the forests that we have are new growth because we've clear cut everything and either not replanted it or replanted it with species that were not indigenous to those areas, like a monoculture of pine trees that you see in different places. When we reseed these, we need to restore the lungs of the earth. Y'all are silly ladies. We need to restore the earth's lungs, and we also need to make sure that it matches local biodiversity. We have to undo this mess that we ignorantly got ourselves into by becoming aware and knowledgeable and backtracking from that. And we can do it. We don't have to go back to being a hunter-gatherer tribes or nomads in order to achieve this. On a related subject, I encourage you to read Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. It's kind of a trippy book. It's about a dude talking to a gorilla psychically. But it's explores some spiritual and ethical things that I think are worth a discussion. So that's just a side point. Also, we need to restore biodiversity. See, we wouldn't have such an imbalanced ecosystem or biosphere right now if we had maintained the diversity in the first place. even before we started recording history formally, I would suspect that humans had a role in putting some species, making species go extinct. Maybe the woolly mammoth, or maybe the saber-toothed tiger. You know, we we don't have to be dominant in order to coexist. In a sense, we're really not the top of the food chain because humans get eaten all the time. So I don't understand why we feel like we're superior to the animal kingdom when we are intrinsically a part of nature. Um, from a spiritual perspective, I see all creation as having consciousness, as having a spirit. Sounds insane, maybe to my atheist friends. Maybe some of my religious friends can relate, in the way I feel towards this. I don't have any evidence. I just have my experience, and I haven't found anyone who's swayed me to be otherwise, except myself. So I'm gonna keep doing that. Uh, so yeah, and then finally with the clean air and water, localized production. Have a good day, Ingrid. You can finish this video later if you like. Take care. Me too, Carlos. Me too. So with our final speaking point today, I do just want to finish this, if I may. You have the belligerence of our public servants that are beholden to big money. And this is a big reason why we are so far behind right now. So yeah, fossil fuel companies like Shell, for example, have been aware of climate change for about 35 years now. The technology has long been possible. There have been prototypes. It could have been mass-produced and lowered in cost by now. But it's easier to be corrupt and propped up a failing system to line your pocketbooks than to do the right thing. And that's where we are now. We also have the increased prevalence of big money lobbyists drowning citizens' voices out. Everyday citizens like you and me only get about 30% of favorable legislation. Big moneyed interests get 70% and beyond. So they're not listening to us. That's why we have to get out in the street and protest Dakota Access Pipeline, protest things like the TPP that would invade our national sovereignty and override it with international corporate tribunals. These are important issues, and they're all interrelated, and we have to take the time to inform ourselves and educate ourselves and each other, and to be patient with one another mostly. Please be patient with me. I try to be patient with you. These are hard times, So Citizens United institutionalized the concept of corporations as people and of money as free speech. There was a time in this country when just fellow human beings, typically white males, unfortunately, were considered people, and we had our Bill of Rights, and now the same rights have been conferred upon these abstract entities called corporations. I agree. Either we have to abide by the rules of nature, or we will suffer the consequences. Nature is the ultimate fascist, and that's just the way it is. The earth is sick. She's screaming in pain right now. She needs our help. She's trying to fix it without killing us all, but we're not making it super easy. As the climate gets warmer, we'll see an increase of tectonic activity. We'll see a decrease in crop output, an increase in pests and pestilence. As people don't have access to good food and water, there are going to be mass refugee migrations. Europe can't hide from this. America can't hide from this. It's just going to happen. People are going to be moving away from the equator. I like to believe there's still time to do something about it, but the clock is ticking, and we're really close to the equivalent of nuclear winter, so. I do appreciate the CDC and the World Health Organization. For example, the World Health Organization labeled glyphosate, these Roundup Ready transgenic modification food products. Glyphosate is a likely carcinogen, and you'll discover that 70, or excuse me, I think the majority of unborn babies have pesticides in their placental cords. We have completely intoxified our environment and our bodies. And we wonder why cancer and autism and things are increasing. Well, also that, but as we retain more heat from the sun, Kate, that will speed up chemical reactions and physical reactions too, honestly. Good day, Kelly. It's good to see you. I don't know how long I've been on here now, but I'm almost finished at this point. So I'm just, once it's reviewed and finalized, just start it over so you can see our whole discussion. Everyone, Kelly is an awesome person. She works with a lot of progressives. She's done a lot of good work with me. I consider her a good friend. So if you like Bernie Sanders or Jill Stein, she's one of the people to go to. So yeah, we have a lot of work to do ahead. As Bernie Sanders said on CNN to Wolf Blitzer after Donald Trump became president-elect, mass organizing for democratic action is required now for at least a 4-year intensive. I've seen Trump's cabinet list. He wants people like Sarah Palin as Secretary of Interior. He wants to nominate people like Chris Christie, the most corrupt of the most corrupt, He wants to open up our national parks to fossil fuel drilling and mining. We didn't pay attention in time. And so now we are going to have to fight harder than ever before. And if we don't, I don't even have to say it. Is there anything else y'all wanted me to touch on before I end our discussion today? Kate, Kelly, Ingrid, Carlos, anyone who's left? Okay, well, if nothing else, I appreciate you taking your time today to listen to me. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate us standing in solidarity with one another. And I hope I'm better clarified where I stand on the issues, and that you can see me as a friend and an ally and a resource now, and not an enemy, and not a troll, not someone who wants to do you any harm. So this is John Michael. Good, I'm glad he dumped Christy. This is John Michael from the beautiful belt buckle of the Bible Belt, Tennessee. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please give peace a chance. See ya.